And welcome back to another episode of Around Comics, episode 367. I am Brian Salazar. With me, as always, Christopher Niesman. And we have a special guest. Tom is out of town. He's up in the greater north hiking or something. I don't know what he's doing. But in his place is comic book scribe, an old friend of the program, Will Pfeifer. How are you, Will?
I'm good, guys. How you doing?
I just thought Tom shaved.
I'm classing it up here with a solo cup. I'm having some work done to my house, so I have nothing to drink out of other than plastic cups and paper plates.
I was hoping you'd have a Superman because I noticed I've got the Batman and Chris is sporting the.
I've got. I'll.
Oh, you have both.
You know me, Will. Why
am I even surprised?
This is a two-fisted man of action podcast here.
That's right.
So welcome to the show, Will. It's been a while since.
Thank you. I know it's been so long since I've seen you guys. It's good to see you. It's good to talk.
The last time I talked to you in person, well, I think you were on. I think you were on with me at one point on Around Comics. That was maybe the last time you were on.
I think so. Yeah.
But the last time I saw you in person, I can't even remember. It was like at a convention.
I'm pretty sure it was in a bar at the convention.
Yeah, yeah,
of course.
That's a high probability answer.
Very high. I'm pretty sure it was like in a Hyatt bar somewhere, maybe at
sounds about right.
Sure. C2E2 somewhere.
Well, I was looking at some our last messages with each other, right? Not our last, but I found some that were dated from like February of last year, because I don't work very far from where you live, and we were like, oh yeah, let's go out to lunch.
I know.
Great to see you. Let's go stop for a beer. And then the world shut down and everything went crazy. So I never saw you over pandemic.
I know I used to work in Janesville, which is not at all far from where you're located now. So
I work in Janesville now.
Oh,
so
we
you betcha.
Next to each other. Well, I'm still only like a half hour from Janesville now. So
sure.
But yeah, I'm all about the work from home.
Will is actually from the same hometown as you're not from there, but you live in my dad's hometown,
which is
Rockford.
Oh, Rockford. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know if it was another.
No.
When you said I was from, I was thinking.
No, well, you're from Ohio.
Right, I'm from Ohio.
Yeah,
but yes,
You went from Ohio to Rockford.
I got a job. I was at Kent State University, and I was graduated, and I got a call saying, "Hey, you want to come work at a newspaper?" And I was like, "It's a job." It was like a week out of school. How could I turn that down?
Mm-hmm. Well,
if I hadn't come on here, I might have never met
Ohio to Rockford is kind of a lateral move.
I know. Sadly, you're probably right. From the Youngstown area to Rockford, it's arguably a upscale move, maybe.
I was just in Rockford for a funeral, unfortunately, but I was just there, yeah. And a lovely church in masks and behind plexiglass. It was a very strange funeral.
I'll bet. I haven't been in a church in a long time, but I definitely haven't been in a church since COVID. So it must be an odd.
It was very strange. It was very strange. Yes, that's all I'll say. We don't need to go down that road. We don't need to. I
remember we were talking about C2E2 and that, but it was about a year ago, right around now. Was the end of February with C2E2, and
it was kind of like the last convention of the year.
I think so in America.
It was the last big one, for comics.
And I was there, and we were all like, COVID was a thing, but nobody knew what it was going to be, and so everyone's like jokingly like, "Oh, no handshakes, let's elbow and this and that."
Well, it was the swine flu or whatever. Right. Yeah, so it's like, oh, this too will pass, and like 20 people will die, and they'll all be from New York or LA.
Right, exactly. And that's not how it turned out, but
what's
that?
Screw those
usually where it happens.
That's right.
Now, so back to Rockford real quick. You were the you were entertainment writer for the Rockford Gazette,
Register Star.
The Register Star. So
I worked there for more than 20 years. I got hired right out of college, and I was actually a copy editor and page designer, and then gradually features editor, graphic editor, that sort of thing. But I was also quote unquote the movie man. So I had a weekly movie column for like 20 years, and it went from VHS to DVD to Blu-ray, and I still have a giant library in the basement of free movies that I got sent over the years.
Oh,
It was beautiful. Criterion, Warner Brothers, HBO, they sent me everything.
Nice.
It was glorious.
It was a big deal whenever I was talking to my cousins, and I said, yeah, we had a comic book creator from Rockford on the show, and they're like, really? And I was like, and they're like, who? And I said, well, it's Will Pfeifer. I'm like, Will Pfeifer, he's on TV here.
Oh, I know. That was the weirdest thing is I used to be on TV and the radio every week. And not something I ever planned in my life. I mean, I was a journalist and writer. I was never expecting to be on camera on mic, but it was so weird. More so even than TV. When I was on the radio, I would be like in a checkout line, and somebody would hear my voice and go, "Are you that guy on the radio that talks about the movies?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, that's me. I'm that guy."
Paul Harvey talked about that. I'm pretty sure it was Paul Harvey. He would talk about the connection that people on the radio have with listeners as opposed to TV personalities. It's really weird, but as a podcaster who has been in those situations where you're like literally checking out at the grocery store or in the comic shop or whatever, it would happen more often, but someone would hear my voice and be like, are you on Around Comics?
Yeah.
And they would always like want to shake your hand and because I think whenever you hear someone, it feels like it's you and them, to where he would say with like TV personalities, people would step back and be like, oh, that's that guy.
That guy, yeah. It's weird, and I think you're right, and especially podcasts. I mean, I think it's a lot more intimate. They're in your ears. Most people listen to podcasts on some side of a headset or earbuds or something, so they're right there in your head, and you develop sort of an image of who they are and what they're like, and so I think you're right. I think that maybe that explains it.
I remember as a kid, I listened. There was a lot of talk radio in Chicago, a lot of pretty popular talk radio stations and talk radio DJs, and there was also like rock DJs, that kind of stuff, rock stations on the loop. And
Steve Dahl owned that town.
Yeah.
Gary and Johnny B and all those guys.
Yeah, Braemeier and that. I remember those guys.
They were huge at one time, but I always remember, like, I can't remember her name, but there was a girl that did like late night rock on some station. I can't remember what it was. And she had this very sultry voice and very sexy. And then you met her and it was like, oh, you don't look anything like that.
There's a Magnum PI episode that is about exactly that, about a Vietnam DJ that all of the troops were absolutely in love with. And then you met her in person and she was not anything like she sounded.
Yeah. I remember in Rockford there were women, and they're not unattractive, but they even thought it was funny. Like, they built up these, like, guys just love them, and they're like, if they saw me, I mean, I'm just an average person, but you build it up in your head.
Yeah, it's the imagination of it. You hear that voice, and then it's like, oh, well, you just create some sort of myth that goes along with it, and
Exactly.
The best game is to do that with NPR radio personalities, like the anchormen and women. It's like, I wonder what Steve Inskeep looks like. Let me Google here. Oh, not that.
It's never what they look like. Never.
It's like, whoa.
Yeah, I only had a couple of instances ever where people recognized my voice, which was a weird thing, but just being recognized or just for the podcast at all was always a very odd thing. And I had one relatively recently in the last couple of years, a guy at my gym that didn't recognize my voice or anything, or didn't recognize me. But then we got to talking and I mentioned a podcast and then all of a sudden like it all light bulb clicked.
And this isn't like the gym pumping. This is the jiu-jitsu gym, right?
Yeah, this is my jiu-jitsu school. Yeah. And he was a higher belt than I was, an adult guy. He was, but it was like all of a sudden you could see that weird, awkward like thing come over him, and he got nervous, and it's like, dude, we've been talking for 3 hours. Like, don't,
Now he's intimidated.
Yeah, that was always very weird whenever we would go to shows, and we've talked about it over and over again.
But, yeah, you guys must have, I would think.
Yeah, it was fun. It was cool, and it was just like, hey, thanks for listening. That's
Yeah.
awesome. That we are interesting enough, for you to spend some time with.
Oh.
And that's cool. And I feel that way about a lot of other podcasts. There are podcasts that sometimes I don't even like the subject. I just like the presenters and just the the timbre of the voice, that kind of stuff. There are just people that I really enjoy listening to.
I always think that the presenters and the personalities, I think they're more important than the subject. Because there's a couple movie podcasts that I won't name, but like that I would normally love it, but I've listened a few times, and the hosts, for some reason, I just don't click with them, and I don't listen. And normally I'd love hearing anyone talk about those movies, but I just don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
I think it changes over the years too, what you find interesting or what you find someone's opinion interesting. It's like I find more and more I'm like just attracted to enthusiasm for something. Guys that are just very or girls that are just very enthused about some subject, and it's like that starts to get sort of infectious, and it's like, oh, I want to feel the way.
That's how you got wrapped up into QAnon.
That's how exactly. That's
very enthusiastic.
The enthusiasm, it just grabbed me, and I couldn't let go.
Have you guys been watching that on HBO?
No, is it good? I haven't seen it yet.
I'm really afraid.
It's very well done. It's very interesting, and it's a little scary, and it's weird watching it because the first episode is sort of like, kind of gives you a background a little bit about Q and like who follows it. And it's more about Trump followers and MAGA and that kind of thing. And then it introduces you to a guy that runs 8chan, which is the message board that posts, or he originally
horrible things.
Well, just it's free. It's anonymous. You can post anything. And Q posts on the board. So you meet the guy that originally created it, and then he ended up leaving it or not leaving it, but selling it to someone else who now runs it. And then the second episode, you meet them, and it's this father and son, and they're very awkward, weird, kind of strange people. And so it starts to become this question: are they Q possibly? And that's sort of the thing. But then they go through this sort of timeline of how Q sort of existed or how it became what it was, and it starts way back with like 4chan, and then Gamergate was a huge part of it. And it was very odd to watch it in like sort of in this linear timeline of seeing these things happen at the same time, like kind of being not involved in that, but like being in comics, being online with comics, and then comics had its own
the Comicsgate and that, and
the Gamergate and the nerd community, and I've never gotten down into any of that dark places, but it was just very odd of like going, oh, okay, yeah, I remember that. I remember, and then as they sort of lay it out of how it went from that to what it is now, and it's just like, oh, it's a little scary. And it's a little bit like
Comicsgate was the screaming little toddler that grew into QAnon, basically.
Well, Gamergate.
Comicsgate was like an offshoot of, or I don't know if it was related. I mean, they took the name or the name.
Yeah, I meant Gamergate. So.
But I think with both, it's this weird thing of like it starts off as just sort of one thing, and then it gets sort of incorporated into more of a political thing, like it's overtaken by I don't know who, you know what I mean? Like it's this odd thing because it's so anonymous.
And people love a conspiracy.
Yeah, and this one's grabbed on, and people really ran with it. And I mean,
but there's a woman they keep going back to, and I think she might be running for Congress at some point. Yeah, and I think, but they like at one point they're like. She's like, well, I would believe anything at this point. I'd believe anything. I can't, I think anything's possible. And they're like, so you believe the earth could be flat? And she's like, sure, anything's possible. They're just like, okay.
Have you seen Beyond the Curve?
No. Is that the Flat Earther documentary?
Yeah, it's awesome. So sorry, Sal, go ahead.
No.
It's okay.
No, I was just it was just a little odd. It's very good. It's very interesting to watch.
It's on HBO Max, right? Is
Yes.
It? Yeah. Okay.
And I think like with anything else, the storytellers have their own sort of agenda.
Oh, sure.
Sure.
You know, I find this more and more with documentaries that I start to see, you know, I think a really good documentarian just shows you the facts,
documents,
and just document, but you're seeing more and more of these sort of documentaries that are agenda driven to some degree,
right?
And good or bad, but it's just they're influencing how you're seeing things, and they're pushing things, and it's like the reality TV thing. Like, it's not quite reality. I mean, they're trying
for sure.
Yeah, it's edited in a way that, I mean, yeah, they could tell a million different stories with the footage they have, and
they could tell the exact opposite story with the footage
right
that they have if they wanted to. Yeah, it's all is certainly the agenda of the filmmaker, but that's also why people, you know, do that.
That's very interesting. And I didn't know that much about QAnon, quite honestly. And
yeah,
after watching 2 episodes, I'm sort of like, maybe we have too much freedom of speech. Maybe I've always been very
that is the most German thing you've ever said, my friend.
I hate to say it, but sometimes I know what you mean. Sometimes,
you know, like it is where it's like, hey, we do have freedom of speech, but you can't yell fire in a theater, and the internet is basically a giant theater that people are constantly yelling fire
exactly. Yeah, they are yelling fire. I mean, if you yell it and it involves people storming the Capitol, it seems like fire was yelled in the theater at some point, you know.
Yeah. So it's a weird time that we live in, and watching that, it's just like there's I've always loved the internet for the ability, you know, like I love having resources at my fingertips. I can look up just about anything, any kind of information. I can go down a hole, you know, a black hole of information. I mean, we've all done that.
We walk around with mother box in our freaking pockets.
But I've always been pretty good about, like, early on, I think I went down some dark paths on the internet. But I pretty quickly was like, yeah, I don't need that shit in my brain. I don't really, that's not what I want in my head. And it's like, I've stayed away from that stuff for the most part. And then you know, it's like, so I almost start to forget that it exists, as dark as it is and as horrible it is. And a place like 8chan is like the worst of it, of freedom of speech. And it's just a you know, it's just a license to, not a license, but it's almost like a dare to just be horrible.
Right. Who can be more horrible? Somebody posted this. Oh, I can do worse than that.
Yeah.
Keep popping in. Right.
Yeah. It's funny. I heard a story today that high schools, a lot of high schools around the country are starting to offer classes in internet mis and disinformation.
Yeah.
Which I think is something that should be taught to everyone.
I mean,
you know,
I've got a 15-year-old here who spends a lot of time on the internet, and it's one thing to say limit screen time and say, well, you can't go on these sites, but it's like, you know, it's the world we live in. I mean, you have to teach her or your kids, and hopefully they'll have the common sense to look skeptically at what they're reading, and so far she seems to be doing pretty well. So
I think that's really the key. You have to trust that you're able to teach them how to, you know, discern those things and just make good decisions like anything else. And I think, you know, I'm kind of amazed. Like, my kids are, to this point, I think the same thing. I kind of trust their decision making for the most part in that regard. They've never really had any issues with that. So it's like, okay, hopefully I did a good job. You know,
I mean, and that's all you can do, because at a certain point you're going, you're not gonna be able to control what they see at all. And you're going to hope that you've given them enough of a foundation to work with. And I mean, it's not something our parents never had to worry about us as kids having, a device in our hands that could bring us everything in the world. I mean,
things you couldn't imagine.
Oh, exactly.
Horrific things you could not imagine.
Jack Kirby imagined it.
I hope he didn't imagine the level of pornography on the internet.
Oh, he did. Vince Coletta was his best friend.
Oh, that's right, Vince Coletta.
Back to documentaries, because you are. If I ever have a movie question,
Mr. Movie.
You are Mr. Movies. If I ever have a question about movies, anything, you're the person that I would reach out to. Who's your favorite documentarian?
Oh, I think probably Thin Blue Line, Errol Morris. I really like Errol Morris's stuff. Because
you've seen Gates of Heaven, right?
I've seen Gates of Heaven. Yeah. Oh yeah, Thin Blue Line.
We saw Gates of Heaven at the Virginia Theater in Champaign, Illinois. I think it's called the Virginia. It was at the Roger Ebert Overlooked Film Festival.
Ebert was,
and Errol Morris was there.
Of that movie. Oh, Errol Morris is there. Excellent.
Yeah, it's in Ebert's top 5 all-time movies.
All time, right?
Ebert
loves it.
Yeah.
He did one called Fog of War. Which
With
was about
McNamara.
Robert McNamara, which is, I find it's fascinating, and he does this thing in it where he talks about the bombing raids in, I think it's World War II actually. I think it's like bombing raids in Japan, and he'll like talk about how many people were killed, and then he'll like give you, okay, this is the equivalent of Des Moines, Iowa. He gives it like an American city, so you could. Yeah. Equivalent. I don't think that's a word.
That's
so
a new word.
Make the connection. And again, like we were saying,
that's a pretty word.
Errol Morris. He edits, and he loves using old footage, and I think he developed like a certain camera, so when he interviews people, they're looking right into the camera. It's like this, which gives it a different feel. There's a guy who definitely has an agenda when he makes his documentaries.
Yeah,
but it's a compelling agenda in most cases. So.
Yep.
We do have a comment from Wayne Masso. I don't know how you pronounce it. Kevin Eastman said that the way the producer of The Toys That Made Us really skewed his relationship with Peter Laird for purposes of the documentary.
I can see that.
Interesting. That's the drama. By the way, I went to it wasn't the main producer, but a woman I went to college with and worked on the college paper is a producer of The Toys That Made Us and the movies that made us.
I'll
just drop that.
The toys. I don't watch all of the toys ones. Just the ones that I loved and grew. But the movies that made us, the Die Hard one
that was great, wasn't it?
And the difference between those two shows is that on The Toys That Made Us, they're talking to like toy designers and marketing people, maybe like Larry Hama would jump on and be happy. For the G.I. Joe. And so you get all these people that are just like, you want to talk to me? Oh yeah, well we did this and we did this and we did this. And then they'll do like, the movies that made us Die Hard. And it's like, yeah, Bruce Willis declined to comment.
Yeah, he's not going to be on it. But in a way, that's interesting because you get the screenwriters or something, and then you get a whole different.
Yeah.
We've heard all the stories about Bruce Willis, and what's he really going to tell us anyway? But
sure.
The Toys That Made Us, so one I highly recommend is the Barbie one.
Okay.
Partly because it's fascinating. It's a fascinating story. I thought that first wave of Toys That Made Us were really interesting. Sure. But on the Barbie one, they interview some big executive. I can't remember what her name is or even what she did. But for some reason, in the room she's being interviewed, in the background in a chair, there's like a life-size dummy mannequin sex doll. I don't know what it is. They never address it, but it's like you're watching like
it's there.
What is that?
Listen, we hire people that are passionate about dolls.
That's right. Well, she's clearly passionate.
Did I talk about Class Action Park, the documentary?
I saw that one.
That was
wild.
That was wild. And I went from like, this is awesome. I would have totally been there at 13 years old if I lived.
Who wouldn't?
To like, oh, this is terrible. These people are dying here.
It did it made that kind of turn where at first you're just like, this is amazing, it's incredible, and then it's like, I guess there are human tragedies involved here. If you were paralyzed, you wouldn't think it was quite so funny.
How do you like the like spoof documentaries? That's going all the way like the Christopher Guest stuff, where they make a comedy out but film it completely documentary style, and it kind of the next step. Like one of my favorite shows is a fake reality TV show. That's what we do in the shadows.
What?
Oh, completely. Oh, yeah. We were
yeah.
just watching it last night. We were watching a couple episodes, but
100% real. That's 100% real. That's not fake at all.
That show is so good. We just watched the Vampire Council episode for like the 900th time, where it has like Tilda Swinton and Wesley Snipes and Pee Wee and
all of the vampires.
I kept thinking, my wife disagrees with me. She said that would just be too stupid. But I thought if only in one shot they had the Count from Sesame Street, I would have like fallen over dead. It would have been beautiful.
Count Chocula.
But I mean, I'm sure you've seen the movie, right?
Yeah.
So good. Yeah, I love a good mock.
The show is much better than the movie.
Yes.
I like the movie, but I agree. I mean, the show, it just, because they just take it in different directions, and they've expanded. They've changed the cast and that, but there's like a real heart to it in some ways too. And like you feel for poor Guillermo, who can't get made into a vampire.
I know it's and then his dream to be a vampire. Spoilers: he finds out that he has vampire slayer blood.
He's a Van Helsing.
He's a Van Helsing.
It's Dutch. Did you hear that they're
the most un-Dutch person ever? And
his name is Guillermo.
Fucking well, that's the gag in the in the finale. It's Guillermo Rivera, or I forget his last name. What is it?
Guillermo is William in Spanish, by the way. So,
did you hear that there's a spinoff?
That's what I'm just going to say. And it's filmed. It's like it starts this spring or summer. They're going to start airing it.
Nice. So it's in the can. Awesome.
It's like based on, it's like a cop show, but it's based, they investigate paranormal activity in New Zealand. So
yeah, it's the poor New Zealand cops that. It's so funny. It's been a while since I watched the movie, but it's worth the watch. It's weird because I watched the first season of the TV show and then went back, watched the movie, and
the payoff for the whole thing where they keep building up about the beast, his enemy, the beast, and then it's his ex-girlfriend. It's perfect.
She is a beast. Yeah.
It's like a normal, I mean, she's a vampire, but otherwise.
Nothing is better than the Superb Al party.
Yes, the Superb Al.
The Jackie Daytona is the greatest. I think that's the best episode.
Hold on. Let me put on my disguise.
Wait, what? Chris, where'd you go? Who's this new person in there?
Who is this? And then when Mark Hamill's at the bar and he takes the stick out and he's like, "Oh, it's you."
Because at first I wasn't sure. They must know, right? But they didn't know. Have you seen the show Toast of London? That is Matt Berry's his British show. Yeah, we were watching that later. I think they're doing now. He's going to do that in America coming up.
Okay, well that's another weird, because there are several people where I've just been like, "Have you seen What We Do in the Shadows?" And they're like, "No," and they'll pull it up and say, "Oh, it's the guy from Toast of London." So I never even knew about Toast of London until some.
Yeah, we didn't know about it until. Yeah, What We Do in the Shadows. And then he did there's another show. I don't know if it's streaming anywhere. I picked up a DVD at some point, but called Garth Marenghi's Dark Place. Have you heard of this? And it's Matt Berry is the supporting character. He's not the lead guy. I can't remember who the lead actor is. But what it is there's a Stephen King-like author. This is the setup of the show, who starred in a show based on his books, which were terrible. So this is like a show within a show. He hosts as the author, and then he stars in it. And it's like set in this hospital where there's mystery and ghosts, and it's the most amateurish, terrible show ever, but it's hilarious. And there's like 6 episodes because they don't want to, wear out its welcome, but it's highly worth seeing. And Matt Berry's his best friend or something.
Did you ever see the show? It was like a limited series thing. I don't remember how many episodes it was, and I don't even remember what it was on. It was Will Ferrell and a whole bunch of other people, but Ferrell plays basically a what's his name? Citizen Kane.
Hearst.
Director. This does sound familiar.
No, the director.
Wells. Yeah.
Wells. He plays this Wells, sort of aged Wells director who had this masterpiece that he never finished, and it is one of the most bizarre
Did
but
he like narrate it from like a restaurant or something?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I do vaguely remember this.
it's so strange. And then, but it goes back in time, and like it's this combination of like flashbacks to when he was younger, and like weird things that were happening, and how his films fell apart, and then scenes of the show that he's making. It was so, and Kristen Wiig is in it.
Yeah.
And they play it completely straight, but
Yeah,
it is so
I think
ridiculous.
Jessica Alba was in it at some point.
Yeah, there was a bunch of people. It was amazing. And I don't remember anyone
What's the
talking
name
about
of this thing?
I vaguely remember that. Yeah, I'd have to look under Will Ferrell, but yeah.
It was such a bizarre show that nobody ever talked about it, and I loved it.
It ran on like IFC maybe or something like that.
Yeah, I think it was IFC.
IFC amazingly has some pretty good.
Talk about documentaries. The documentary now.
That's just what I was going to mention.
Oh my god!
I love. I mean,
Spoils of Babylon.
Oh, yeah, that's it. Spoils of Babylon.
Okay.
Uh-oh. What happened to Sal?
Where's Sal?
Did we get so excited about documentary now? Are we still on?
Documentary now. You know what? Just assume that we are.
Okay.
So, I was.
I'm back.
Oh yeah. You're back. When
about Babylon.
That's
Yeah, that's what you.
Crazy.
It was such a bizarre. I want to watch it again because I don't even know if I got it all when I watched it. It was so weird.
It was many levels, like levels within levels.
Yeah, like Grapes of Wrath, and like it felt like Giant at some times.
Yes.
It was so insane.
Looks like David Spade and Tobey Maguire and
so many people in it.
It must have been like
Haley Joel Osment.
Yeah, they just wanted to work with Will Ferrell, I guess, maybe, or
Tim Robbins.
Yeah. I think
Tim
so.
Robbins was in it. Yeah,
that's crazy.
It's amazing. But documentary now.
When I started watching that, I was saying they made this show for me. I can't imagine who else even likes it.
Oh God, it's so good.
Because it was so specific. Like when they would do something, like they did that one. They did one about guys who sold globes door to door, like an old black and white thing.
One of the first ones.
Yeah, which is insane. But the thing is, it is exactly based on this documentary called Salesman, about Bible salesmen. And
which I didn't know that. But I went and watched that documentary just so I knew what they were making fun of. And
it's so close.
Yes. Dude, when they did the one with what is the actress? She's a phenomenal actress.
Kate Blanchett, that one? Was it
yes.
With the artist, right?
The artist. She plays this very extravagant and obtuse artist. There was a point when I was watching that where she was so good, I forgot that I was watching a fake documentary.
Completely.
Like she was so amazing in it that I'm like, I thought for a minute I was watching a real documentary about this incredibly insane genius artist. That's how good they are. Those shows are the one they did on the Blue Jean. What was it?
It was the band. Oh, it was so good. And like at a certain point, it's not even really trying to be funny. It's just trying to be kind of like a interesting story, maybe kind of a touching, sad little tale and everything. And then Helen Mirren introduced each one as if it's a real thing. Like document, like this is a show that's been on for 50 years. And here's the new season. They never once let on that it's a joke.
No, it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. One of my favorite things that I've found, and same thing. I'm like, I'm sure no one is watching this, but it is.
Who else could be? Well, I'm glad two of us.
Whenever you feel like you might be the only person, that
you're not.
Enjoys it. So Will, I'll see if you have a chance to make my day or disappoint me just a little bit. I kind of had this ongoing thing with Sal that it is my favorite TV show currently on, and I understand it's a little nuts. Snowpiercer it's the best TV show. It is my favorite thing on TV right now.
Multiple times you have called it the best television show,
and I'm gonna stop doing that. It is my favorite.
I have to say
this.
On TV. I saw the movie. I really liked the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I started watching the show, and at some point we kind of bailed. We were just like, it's okay, but we're not getting that much into it anymore.
That's because of taste.
Go back to finish up like the last 2 or 3 episodes of season 1. Watch season 2. It's been fantastic.
I don't know if I'm gonna do that. I just finished
He's like,
WandaVision.
please, like, I'm not gonna do that, Chris.
Yeah, I know. I appreciate it, but I don't think I'm probably
love you, but no.
I can pretend I was gonna, but I don't think I'm gonna.
It's so good. It's so good. It's
Me
so good.
We watched it for a while, and I don't know. At a certain point, my wife and I every so often we find it very freeing when we're watching a show, and then we'll look at each other like, I don't really want to watch this anymore. And we'll just turn it off. We'll turn it off in the middle of an episode. We'll be like, we're never coming back to it. We started watching Resident Alien, and then we just kind of, I like the alien, but everyone else I didn't really care about. So
it's the only scenes I really like in that are with him and the kids.
Yeah.
You know,
I like him a lot. I never read the comic. In fact, I don't even know if I realized it was a comic when I started.
I knew it was. The comic's about the same. It's okay. It's I don't I didn't love the comic. I think the show is kind of the same. Take it or leave it. Some people probably like it, but it's just not for me. And that's the thing. Like now, it's just there's so much. I can't even keep up with the amount of good shows that I want to watch, let alone have time for something that I'm sort of lukewarm on.
Exactly.
So same thing.
So much.
I spent 4 hours watching Zack Snyder's Justice League.
Oh, I did too.
Count? I did too.
I did that.
We can talk about that. We can talk about that.
Oh, man.
I have so many thoughts.
And I never saw in its entirety the other cut.
Here's the thing. Cut. I'm a weird comic test case on this. Never saw Man of Steel. Never saw Batman versus Superman. Never saw the original release. This is the first Zack Snyder DC movie.
I'm with you. I saw bits and pieces of them, but I never saw the whole thing. So
I've seen it all.
Yeah.
I saw the Owls of Gahuli, though, his animated movie about warrior owls.
That actually sounds like it would be more interesting than Justice League was.
It was probably about, it was okay.
Was it 4 hours?
It was not 4 hours long. It was probably a hard 100 minutes or so.
What I love about the movie is that in the Snyder Cut, they're working so hard to set up the sequel.
Right. And it's
at
not,
the end.
Who knows though? Maybe there's been a lot of furor. Maybe it'll happen.
There's a powerful Snyder audience.
There is.
I mean, they spent $70 million to recut a film that no one.
The original was a box office. I mean, it made money, but it wasn't what they wanted.
No. But
they wanted the Avengers, and they didn't get it. And
they didn't get it with this either. I mean,
Zack Snyder fans are kind of like Nickelback fans. They can be really, really loud.
Yeah, completely. Did I read somewhere that it didn't even have the viewership that the Wonder Woman 84 movie had for all the noise that it didn't get that much.
What didn't?
It's the Justice League. This Zack Snyder cut. Yeah.
Well, that's I think whenever Wonder Woman came out, I think this is just me spitballing. Mandalorian was still on, so I think a lot of people had different network.
No, it's on HBO.
Yeah, it's HBO.
Maybe it was New Year's. Plus,
I think people were really starved for big time movies.
It was weird in the pandemic. I mean, you wanted stuff. You wanted, it's hard to believe, but January was a very different vibe than it is now. People were really wanting things, I think. And I didn't see the Wonder Woman movie either. So,
well, here's my big surprise. Out of the two of those, I'll never watch either one of them again. But I actually enjoyed Justice League more than Wonder Woman.
I heard a lot of people say Wonder Woman just was. I liked the first one. Okay. There wasn't a lot about it, but they said this one just was not good.
It was just a mess. It was just a mess of a movie. I mean, she's great. She's great in everything. I mean, she actually made Justice League, way better than it should have been. But Gal Gadot is awesome.
For me, the thing about Justice League was it just felt so serious and so it wanted to be like, we're a movie for grown-ups. And there's no easier way to make a movie that doesn't feel for grown-ups than to try and make it. You know, it's like, look, we're serious, and Batman swears, and the heroes kill everyone. And it's like, it just was trying too hard, I think.
Yeah.
But that's the way Zack Snyder likes. I mean, sincerely, that's how he likes his heroes, I'm sure. I mean,
whenever you're making comics for adults, I think we have two perfect examples of how to and how not to right now that just came out. Zack Snyder's Justice League. It's really dark, grimy, gritty, dropping F-bombs, just being extreme to be extreme. And I don't think that's the way to do it. And then on the other side, we've got Amazon Prime releasing the Invincible animated series.
Is it good?
So good.
Is it really?
Yeah, and it's just.
But that's made for two completely different. I mean,
it's made for comic book fans who are adults.
But that's not what the JLA is made for.
Who's it made for?
JLA, it's made for millions of more people that have never read a Justice League comic book in their life.
Yeah. Well,
it's
just kind of the idea of how to do something that is going to appeal to adults as opposed to kids, you know.
Yeah, I love the Invincible cartoon. I see what you're saying, but I think it's two completely different sort of things. If you're making a animated series on, you know, whatever, Amazon, that's based on a comic book by Kirkman. I mean, that's a totally different thing than, hey, you're making the franchise film for Warner Brothers superhero universe. I think that comes with two different types of expectations, two different types of pressure and
but what I'm talking about is the execution of it. If you're trying to make something that is appealing to adults or an older audience with superheroes, I think that Invincible shows how to do that and be entertaining without being just too heavy. You know, it's like Zack Snyder's movies are like meals with too much butter in them. I mean, they're just like so heavy. And
I think I see what you're saying. I think a better example would be The Boys.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Or I was gonna say, because it came out.
That's zeitgeist. You know what I mean? Like The Boys hit. People that don't give a shit about comic books, that have never read a comic book, are watching The Boys and love it, and don't even, you know what I mean? And I think that's what Warner Brothers wants. They don't give a shit if the 100,000 comic book fans that exist in the world,
right,
or in the United States,
you
know what I mean? They want the 100 million that want to go see the Avengers movie, and you know, it's a different thing.
Well, you figure that's why they brought Whedon on to do that, and he apparently, I didn't see the theatrical release, but apparently it was a lot jokier. To try and lighten the mood a little bit.
And they lightened. I mean, they literally lightened up. Like, I think that big battle at the end took place in the daylight in the Whedon version, and the nighttime in this one. And I mean, you know, and it's like, I mean, I'm certainly not the first person to say this, but probably the best thing that ever happened to Marvel movies is they couldn't get the rights to Spider-Man, they couldn't get the rights to Fantastic Four, and they couldn't get the rights to the X-Men. So they take Iron Man, Thor, Hulk, Captain America, heroes that people maybe knew, maybe most people had never heard of Iron Man.
Right.
And then they, you know, gave each one of them their movie, built interest, and then when the Avengers came out, everyone wanted to see it. I mean, the thing with DC's movies is you've got the three most recognizable superheroes ever, arguably, and it's like, it should be $1 billion movie without doing anything. It should bring people in the theater. So.
Yeah. And on the weirdest thing, I think that DC does TV better than Marvel has. You know, Marvel's changing that with Disney Plus, but I mean, DC has for some weird reason in animated and in live action on TV been able to do a pretty decent job.
I mean, you know, going way back, you know, going back to Smallville or going back to Lois and Clark. I mean, really, you know, way back. And then, But Marvel or something, Kevin Feige, whoever. I mean, you know, I remember before Guardians of the Galaxy opened, there were some people saying, well, this is going to be Marvel's bomb because nobody knows who these characters are. And of course, it was their biggest movie to date, I think. It made a ton. And now, you know,
one of my favorites.
After mine, that may be my favorite Marvel movie.
Out of the MCU, that's one that I will,
I think Suicide Squad's going to be that for.
That's what I was going to say is
done, you know.
You get that. I mean, that's why they hired him. They wanted their Guardians. And, you know, there's an R-rated movie that's going to have violence and swearing, but it but it looks like fun. Yeah, or Deadpool was fun, and it was an R-rated superhero.
That was the kiss of death. Whenever they said that they were putting out Deadpool and it was going to be R-rated, they're like, "Oh, that's going to bomb."
Yeah, you know. And it was huge, and people liked. I liked it.
Oh,
and
it was great.
Care less about the character of Deadpool.
I like both of them.
Yeah, and I'm dying to see Suicide Squad.
I really want to see that. I think it looks
like
great.
So much fun. Because
where did I see the gal? The gal that played Domino just popped up on something, and I'm trying to remember what it was.
Gal Gadot?
No, the gal that plays Domino in Deadpool 2.
She was in.
I just saw her.
She was in Joker.
Yeah,
she was the girlfriend in Joker. The
girlfriend.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you think we talked about a little bit? I was talking about the last episode, or I don't know when. I think it was ACTV episode. That a little bit of the difference between Marvel characters and DC characters is that, you know, DC characters are a bit more iconic, and I mean that in the sense that they are more cardboard cutout. You know, Superman is the big blue. And Batman is the Dark Knight, and the Flash is the red speedster, and Green Lantern is the green guy. You know what I mean? And they're very simple sort of characters, whereas Marvel have always been a little more complex, not 100% good, not a little more broken vessels of characters. And I think that makes for better movies.
I would agree. I mean, Spider-Man. You know, I mean, you know, Batman, you know, you could say Clark Kent and Superman, they're the same person, but, you know, different personalities of Bruce Wayne or Batman. But Spider-Man is Peter Parker in that, whether he's in the suit or not, he's Peter Parker all the time. I mean, he's either failing or he's coming back from a failure or something. And I agree. I think that's what people want in their superhero movies now is somebody, you know, I mean, you have Iron Man, but the reason they did all those, you know, they developed that way to have a shot of his face inside the helmet. It's because they're paying to have Robert Downey Jr. act in these movies, and they're not going to have him behind a helmet for 90% of the movie. And
hence why Iron Man 3, he was either not in the armor or had his helmet off.
Exactly.
You know, like most of that movie.
And I mean, I still think that maybe the genius move, or maybe it was a stroke of luck, was them casting Robert Downey Jr. way back then, because that solidified that character, and that was the seed from which everything sprung. And it established that these heroes have their own personalities and aren't just the hero. Like, I mean, you know, Chris Evans has one of the hardest jobs in those movies. It's so hard to play just a good guy. It could be so boring. I mean, Christopher Reeve did it, and Chris Evans does it, and he doesn't make it boring. He's an interesting character, but you never doubt that he's like a good guy. He's not like a, you know, smart aleck or anything. And that's a hard thing to do.
Yeah, I agree. I think as much as I like Gal Gadot and I think Henry, what's his name? Cavill is a good actor.
I like him too.
I like him, but I don't think any of them have much in the way of personality. I don't think that they emote much personality.
Come on, didn't you watch The Witcher?
I did, and he has zero personality.
I know.
I liked him in the Mission Impossible movie he was in, where he basically played the villain. Then I thought he had this guy. Let's have him bring a little more energy to it, you know.
But I just think that the casting is just like, you know, what's his name, Khal Drogo as Aquaman. It's like that guy he is so far away from what anyone who has read an Aquaman comic.
Exactly.
And it's like he's awesome. It's like he's a badass dude, but it's like he's just him,
right? And
like,
that's
there's no depth to that dude. He's, you know what I mean? Like there's nothing there behind. And I think with all of them, Gal Gadot, I think is maybe the best, and even she is relatively flat in the sense of like she's, you know, very beautiful, she's very stoic, but there's not a whole lot there to grab onto. She's great as Wonder Woman because she can really give you that ethereal beauty and that sort of like, you know, a goddess sort of character, but then how do you connect to that?
And it's like Aquaman, I
think that's what they tried to do in 1984,
and it just didn't
work.
Just didn't. They tried really hard, and I don't think it was her fault. You know?
And why is Aquaman such like the bro character? You know, drinking and I mean,
they're trying to find a way to make Aquaman cool.
Well, I mean,
you've written him. How do you make
Aquaman as a sort of like, you know, a longshoreman, you know, kind of a character? I don't mind that, but then when you sort of like put him, you know, where he's surfing on the back of you know, what are the demon parrot demons, and you know, hey man, you know, and it's just everything is, bro, hey, yeah, man, my man, you know, it's just everything is that. It's just like
so. I mean, I know what they're trying to do. I just don't think it works for that Aquaman. I mean, it's, you know.
But funny enough, I think I like the Aquaman movie more than Wonder Woman.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard people say that. I haven't seen it, but I've heard people.
Yeah, it's probably my favorite DC
movie of because it's fun.
It is fun.
It's fun. It's fun. It's not, you know, trying to, you know, grind people's skulls into powder and that kind of stuff.
Well, Zack Snyder, I mean, okay, on a positive note, I will say this. Everybody says he doesn't get these characters, he doesn't understand superhero characters. And I will agree to that on one side of it, where he doesn't understand sort of the things that I think a lot of comic book fans love about these characters. But what he does get is how to make them look cool.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I would agree.
There were plenty of like, okay, this is a fucking awesome scene, but that's all that movie is. It's a bunch of awesome scenes strung together with very little in between.
You know the scene where the entire team comes together and the slow motion pan, and it's that impactful moment where, yes, they are together. This is the team. He did that 7 times.
Right. We did that. We get that one thing in the Avengers, that one spin around shot in the Avengers. You know, we're waiting for it, and here it is. And
if it's cool once, it's going to be cool the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh time.
Credit, but I will say this: they did the same shot in WandaVision. You know what I mean?
They did do the same shot in WandaVision.
The same fucking shot. It's like, okay, that's a little much. You know,
that was funny.
And speaking of Zack Snyder making things cool, is I think back to his Watchmen movie, which, you know, it took, aside from changing the ending, I mean, it was like it used the book as a blueprint. And sometimes that worked. I really thought the Dr. Manhattan origin was beautifully done in that movie. That was probably the best part. The scene that I always think back to when thinking about Zack Snyder is when Night Owl and Silk Spectre are in the alley and a bunch of people attack them, and then they fight them off because they're former superheroes. And in the comic, it's like a desperate, brutal fight, and at the end they're just like, and they barely made it through. And, you know, it's nasty. And in the movie, it's just cool. It's just like, look at him kick ass in slow motion. I'm like, that kind of missed the whole point of this scene.
And then they got to bang, and then they got to bang it out.
Exactly. Well, you know, and they got to play Leonard Cohen.
Hallelujah.
Of course.
Yeah, he's a little, he's shallow. I think Zack Snyder is a shallow person. I don't think there's
if not a shallow person, a shallow filmmaker.
Yeah, shallow.
We have some other comments. Gordy Adams said JLA was made for people who like video game graphics and little storyline.
They love those cut scenes. It was like like 4 hours of cut scenes.
Always good to hear Gordy chime in.
I don't know who this Facebook user said. Zack Snyder is an ice cream flavor that does not taste right to me. So
there you go.
It's
a very polite way to put
it. It is. You know. So if you like the Justice League movie and it brought happiness to your life, more power to you.
I will say I probably did like it more than I liked the original. I didn't hate the original cut. It was okay. There was some nice things in it. You know, there were some cool things to see. This was like, it was like a lot of cool shit, you know, so it was hard not to like all the cool shit, but it, you know, but it was 4 hours of like, of not even really a movie, you know, you know, it's like, it's just like,
I know. I will say this for it. When I watch it, I could see the director behind it. This was one man's vision. Whether I like that vision or not, but I mean, it was not, you know, he clearly had a vision and he brought it to the screen.
And his vision is in a 4:3 ratio.
That's right. Yes, and that may have been my favorite part of the whole movie. The note at the beginning. That or when Cyborg was looking through the world's financial system, and then we had a giant computer graphic of a bull and a bear fighting, and I was like, does he think that the markets actually fight with each other, like a bull market and a bear market fight, and then one wins, and that's what determines the market?
And they do it on the stock trading floor
they do.
at the first of every month.
That's why they have a bell.
Well, that was made for a lot of his fans are brokers. I mean, a lot of Zack Snyder fans. That was specifically made for them. But what I want to talk to Will about is, because I haven't had a chance, and this is something going back a little ways as far as films, but Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is a movie that I want to talk about with you, because I think it is my favorite. I love Quentin Tarantino.
I do too. I'm with you.
Tarantino fan. I think it might be my favorite Tarantino film.
I may agree with you on that. It varies, but it's way up there.
Way up there. And I don't know how Leonardo DiCaprio did not win Best Actor.
So he was so good. I mean, Brad Pitt won and deserved it. I mean,
deserved it, but
Brad Pitt was such a movie star in that movie. But yeah, DiCaprio. I think DiCaprio, if he hadn't won for The Revenant a couple years ago, I think he would have won for this. I think that was the only reason.
The scene, 2 scenes in particular with him that I thought were unbelievably good. The one, which was I believe it was ad-lib for the most part, was where he goes to the set of the TV show where he's playing the bad guy, and he goes in and he fucks up his lines, and then he goes in his trailer and he's just like throwing shit around and
good.
Free fucking he's yelling at himself about drinking too many whiskey sours, and just like that scene was unbelievable, so good. But the scene leading up to that, where he's filming with
Timothy Olyphant.
Timothy Olyphant. And you can see his confidence get rocked the moment that he screws up his line, and he goes from a decent actor to a terrible actor who is overcompensating. Now he's insecure. That scene was so fucking well done. I don't think I've ever seen an actor portray something so subtle so well ever in my life. Like, I was just blown away by that.
I would agree. And I remember people saying, why do they have to have all that stuff about on the TV show? That was so long and boring. I'm like, no, it was great. And it had to be, you couldn't just have all these cuts. You had to see that whole thing develop. It was beautiful. And then the scene after with the girl, and then he brings it back and he delivers a real performance.
When she says, that is the best acting I've seen in my entire life. She's like
tearing up.
It was great. It could have been like so silly, but it just really worked so well. Oh, I love that movie. I saw that movie opening night because I've been dying to see it forever.
Me too.
And then I took my wife, like, I don't know, the next week or something, and she didn't know anything about. She knew it said at the Manson era, and she said, because she's a big true crime person, but she said, I don't want to go see a movie where I don't want to see Sharon Tate get carved up, pregnant Sharon Tate get carved up on screen. And all I said was, they don't show that. That's all I said.
Right.
But that ending, it's just, you're waiting for it, and it just feels so good when it happens. It's like,
he makes up like it's a revenge flick. It's a revenge.
Wait, movie. You have a flamethrower?
That was, and I went because I've watched it like a
wait, the one from the movie
Blu-ray. When Brad Pitt is doing work and he goes in the shed, the flamethrower is there.
Yeah, it's sitting in the shed.
It's sitting there, and he's listening to the Snoopy Red Baron song on the headphones which comes out. Oh.
When he goes when he goes out in the robe and the frozen margaritas, it's a yell at the Manson kids. It's so good.
And I heard people say like, well, they didn't deserve to be killed. They didn't even do anything. And I'm like, you're defending the Manson family? What?
Yeah. Okay. Well, actually, they at that point they had
didn't.
Hadn't they had already killed?
No, the LaBiancas were the next night.
They were the next night.
Yeah,
okay.
Okay. And I like how in the movie, Charles Manson, that never really happens to him, but you get the feeling that he just faded away.
Just goes away. Yeah. Yep. That's the alternate reality is that Sharon Tate goes on to be one of the biggest stars ever, and
Rick Dalton gets a new career somehow.
Rick Dalton gets a new career meeting Polanski and all. Yeah.
Did you see that? Two things about that. Did you see one that Quentin's releasing a novel of it?
Oh, nice.
And
he said
the format is just the format is your basic normal small like airport drugstore paperback. That's the format. So it's supposed to be like a book you bought back then.
Of course.
Yeah. That's awesome. The other thing is, if you don't have the soundtrack to this movie, you run out and buy it because it's got all those songs. It's got like 40 tracks plus all the commercials and all the radio cuts are like interwoven in.
That sounds like a good vinyl purchase.
It's incredible. I put it in the car and I'll just drive, and it's just it's so.
I have the double vinyl, yellow sunset, 180 gram.
Nice.
Do you really?
Yeah. Oh yeah, dude. Yeah. I'll grab it. Hold on. Hold on. 1 second.
It's great. It's so much because when I was in the theater, I'm gonna get this soundtrack because I always get Quentin soundtracks. I'm thinking, I hope these radio commercials on it, and everyone is on there.
Pulp Fiction is still one of my all-time favorite soundtracks, followed very closely by Reservoir Dogs.
Oh, it's incredible.
I mean, those are two of the greatest soundtracks ever of any movie.
I agree. And think about the songs he brought back, and the 2 Kill Bills are really good too.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Yeah. Let me see here. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I'm seeing if Sal's vinyl is still available. Oh, it is.
I love that.
And it's 30 American dollars. So, yeah. And I figured out what Domino is in. I'll have to whenever it won't matter to you because you haven't seen Invincible yet.
No, I haven't seen Invincible. I started watching Falcon and Winter Soldier today.
Yeah, and so real quick shout out to for our Patreon. If you want to become a patron of the show, you can do so. Go into patreon.com/aroundcomics, and you'll get to hear what Sal and I think about the Falcon and Winter Soldier. Because it's on our ACTV. So the long and short of it, we both really enjoyed the first episode. Second episode, cooled off a little bit.
The first one so far.
Yep, first one's great. There it is.
Look at that. Oh,
beautiful. It's this is there was a couple of different editions of it, but I just love it has a lot of set photos.
Oh, I love it.
The album
nice.
And then it's 180 gram yellow.
Yep, I'm getting one. I'm getting it. Oh, by the way, Domino in Deadpool 2 was played by Zazie Beetz,
right?
And she is the voice for Amber in Invincible. That's where I saw her recently.
Amber,
Mark's girlfriend, Amber.
Oh, right.
Yes, so she's voiced by Zazie Beetz.
It comes with a Once Upon a Time in Hollywood map.
Nice.
And with all the advertisers, the Red Apple cigarettes, and it's a map of the stars. So it's awesome.
One of my favorite scenes in the whole movie, and it doesn't involve a single actor, that scene toward the end when
Hey, Will, can you actually picture that?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. The scene toward the end, and on Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, when the lights are going down and when it's getting dark, and all the neon lights come on all the restaurants.
Oh yeah.
It's just such an. I mean, people think Quentin is just this like, oh, he just likes violence and swearing, but it's exactly the opposite. He like has these quiet moments. He's incredible with dialogue. I mean, it's so good.
I absolutely agree with you. I think why I like this movie so much is because it shows everything that he's learned as a filmmaker in the 9 other movies that he's made.
I would agree.
And he shows it all. But one of the scenes, and I don't even know why I love the scene so much, but the scene when Sharon is walking in downtown by the and she crosses the street and the camera doesn't follow her. It stays across the street and just watches her walk down the sidewalk. I don't know what it was about that particular scene, but it was just like this like forlorn moment. I don't know. It was just something about it that he captured, and I can't even explain why, but it was just this beautiful scene of her and the decision to not follow her with the camera and to just take that long shot and watch the street and all the street signs and everything that she passes by was just, it was brilliant. It was just, that's what makes him a great director.
Yes, and there was, he didn't do any CGI with that. They redid every storefront down there. They blocked off streets. They did all the cars. Oh.
Yeah.
The one, it's his love letter to Sharon Tate and to LA at that time.
Oh yeah,
that time period.
Well, he talked about the fact that he felt like, that was 1969, and that changed Los Angeles. That that event changed Los Angeles forever, because before then it was like people didn't lock their doors. People weren't afraid to go out at night. People weren't, and then all of a sudden you had this thing that no one had ever dealt with before, never seen anything like it, and it changed LA, and it really, he felt like obviously for the worse. And
if you read back then, I mean, because the Tate murders were horrifying, and then the next night this other family got slaughtered, and then people were like, what is going on? Because at first I read in Helter Skelter, the cops don't even connect the 2 murders for some reason. It took them a long time to figure out it was the same people.
They had 2 different groups of detectives. One, and it was a weird thing of like, they put all the young detectives that were sort of inexperienced on I think it was on the La Bianca case, and then they put all the older ones on the Tate case because it was more high profile.
Right.
And they didn't communicate at all.
It's insane. Yeah. It went on for a while, and they, that's why it took so long to catch them.
Did you, moving on to something that it just sparked in my mind though, but did you watch the documentary series on the Night Stalker?
Yes. Yeah.
And that was another, oh my goodness, that was and
that was really good. And I mean, I only knew the very broad strokes of that story, and talk about horrifying. Oh,
I watched that at night by myself and did not sleep well that night.
Freaked out.
Yeah, they did such a good job.
They really did. And the one woman they talked to, who when she was a little girl, she was abducted, and he took her, and whatever he did, he let her go, but God knows what happened to her before he let her go. And I mean, the mere fact that she's like seemingly a stable adult is credit to something, but
and that was like, I didn't know about that at all, the fact that he had molested and abducted a bunch of kids, and the cops, spoilers, sorry if anyone hasn't watched it, but they were like, we don't need to drag them, we have them all on all these murders, we don't need to add on kid cases to drag those families through this,
drag them into court. They didn't want the kids to have to test.
He's going away forever anyway.
It wasn't going to add anything to 100 sentences or whatever
and the way they caught him, they found out who he was, and then like that crowd of people
chased him down.
How
crazy. But just another, like, how that changed the whole feeling of the city. And like everyone was just, panicked and buying guns and just locking up their houses and freaking out. And and it was just like this thing of like, it was so random. You had no idea.
Because he wasn't like targeting like just, brunette women or something. It was like, could have been anybody. And he came into their homes, and what a nightmare.
Unbelievable. Well, that's cheery.
Yeah. And he's still women, somebody married him after he went to prison, which
he was a rock star. When he was in court, he was a rock star. They were throwing themselves at that's
long hair and
I have the answer to build the show's audience, Sal.
Yeah.
We're going to stop talking about comics.
Oh,
we're gonna have Will. We're gonna have Will on every week, and we're going to talk about true crime documentaries. It will be huge.
Yeah, I could do that easily.
My wife and I, we would watch like everyone on Netflix, and then I think we had to take a break at a certain point. It's just like it's too much. Although now we watch the Gacy one on what is it? The NBC, whatever that one is, the Peacock. I think they're doing a Gacy.
Peacock.
Gacy's. What's weird is I remember working at the newspaper, and I was just farting around one time looking through old files, and the Gacy jurors were pulled from Rockford, I think, because and they had all these courtroom sketches of the Gacy trial in our files.
Really?
I was like, what are these doing here? Yeah.
Oh, crazy.
Oh, that's kind of weird.
I know, it was very weird. And when they executed Gacy, which was sometime in the 90s,
he was in jail a long time.
They had the they do a lottery to see who's going to witness it. Every news organization puts in we'll be there, this and that, and there
was there.
Well, no, but there was talk in the newsroom, and we didn't win, so it never came to this. But of the people they were going to send, my name was one of them. They were thinking about it. Now, they probably would have just gone with their top court reporter or something, but they were thinking,
or the movie guy.
Well, no, but sort of, because they were thinking everyone will get the straight story out of this. The AP will have that in every paper. They said, but what about sending someone who's like pop culture? Because Gacy was almost like this weird pop culture figure,
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I mean,
I
was kind of thinking, I'd like to go, but on the other hand, it's like, do I really want to go? And I don't know.
I really want to see that. Yeah, I don't know.
But it never, didn't come to that. So,
if only, Will, you could have been a famous, writer of Gacy biography. Who knows what you could have? Where that
your Once Upon a Time in Hollywood moment.
That's right.
Everything changed.
I read a Gacy. What was it? Tim Cahill, this true crime writer, wrote a book called Buried Dreams about Gacy, and I read it, and it was like, when I was done, I was like, whoa. I mean, that's such a disturbing story. It's really awful. Ugh. And just down the road.
Yeah.
Hey, we've got Dahmer up here.
That's right. Dahmer from Akron, Ohio, my neck of the woods.
Really, from Akron, Ohio, but with hockey. There you go. That's our connection.
Did you ever read Dirk Backdorf's My Friend Dahmer?
I did.
I thought that was really good. And his Penn State, excellent, by the way. I highly recommend it.
And
they made that into a movie, I think.
Yeah, they did. The Dahmer one,
which was interesting. But yeah, it's a good graphic novel.
Yeah.
His Kent State one, I'll say, because I went to Kent, his level of research was insane, because I'd be reading through it and be like, oh, I know this street, I know this part of campus. I mean, he drew it to where the recognizable storefronts and restaurants and buildings and everything. It's crazy.
Nice. Well, gentlemen, should we try and wrap this one up?
We talked no comics.
No comics at all. That's okay.
We mentioned a couple comic things.
We talked comic movies, so comics adjacent.
Fine. It's here. I'm working through the complete hero.
Hey, look at that.
So I had some bum. Can you imagine?
What is that edition?
The ego that it takes. I had this guy hardbound the entire run of Hero.
No, you earned that because you went to that Morrison Con. And with all the chaos, you got me Quitely and Morrison to autograph my Flex Mentallo. So that was my thank you to Chris. I was binding a set for myself, so I bound one for Chris. But you earned that completely.
It sits on a place of honor in my office.
It'll never be collected otherwise. So enjoy. By the way, I always wondered, the way things have changed and people's attitudes have changed. There's a 3-part story in there where the guy turns into a female superhero, and I always wonder, I was trying to write it I was sensitively back then, but I wonder how it reads now. Maybe appalling.
We'll see. I love what you wrote here. It's a personal message, and it says, "Enjoy this never to be collected bit of DC history."
I wish DC would collect it, but I don't see it happening.
Hey, the movie's coming, right?
Oh, if only.
There is one comic. Old friend of the show. I think someone that we've had on a couple times. Jason Howard. I just got the collected edition of Big Girls, and I'm a couple issues in, and it is big, fun sci-fi adventure with giant women and giant monsters.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's cool. I'm enjoying it. I'll talk about it more next week. But yeah, Big Girls from Image. Is it Image? It is Image.
There is our required comic book talk.
There's your comic talk for the week.
I hope that holds you.
I did mention ACTV, which Sal and I do every week. We talk about a TV show, and right now we're 2 episodes into The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. We had done WandaVision previously. You can find that on our Patreon page. It's patreon.com/aroundcomics. You also find stuff like Tom versus the Freedom Fighters. So all you folks out there, and we know that there are people who are specifically doing the Patreon for Tom's
one person.
Well, it was her and her partner. So that is 2 people. So there are people that are doing it. We've got Sal's Future Stacks, which is every Sunday. He talks about all the cool and possibly cool comics coming out in the week ahead, what to look for at comic shops. I need to get another interview in the books and do a 30 minutes with. And there's that and all sorts of other fun stuff at the Patreon page.
I did add a couple of tiers at the Patreon page. So there's some new tiers if people are interested in some kind of different goals that we're possibly going to try and reach. And also a cheaper tier if people just want to help and support the show. So that's all at patreon.com/aroundcomics if you'd like to support the show. And you can do that there. So,
Yay. Yeah. Oh, and this Thursday, is it this Thursday? This Thursday, are we playing D&D?
Yes, we are playing D&D, AC D&D, Thursday live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. We'll be there. I'll post that soon, I think.
Yeah, it's 7:30 Central Standard Time.
Something like that. Yeah, we usually
get that going.
I always mark but I always mark it for later than I think we're gonna start because I never know,
Yeah. Well, we're all elves.
That's all. I was an elf back in my D&D days.
Everyone.
I may have been half elf actually.
Half elf. We have a half elf.
We do have a half elf.
4 different elves and then a half elf. Yeah.
I haven't played for a while, but my daughter was just playing virtually today with the school group. But now she's playing.
It's made a huge comeback. My kids wanted to play. I think it was Stranger Things was a big part of.
Yeah, you may be right. When I was a kid playing D&D way back in the early 80s, we had a kid in our group briefly whose mother was born again, and she told all our parents that we were worshiping Satan in the basement and we were wearing black robes and hoods. And our parents, to their credit, pretty much laughed right in her face.
My mom was a little concerned because you had the whole satanic panic.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
that damn Tom Hanks movie. That damn Tom Hanks movie.
Well, apparently we're getting back to that. Apparently, there's a big
Lil Nas X.
Yeah, Lil Nas X is causing more satanic panic. We're back in the 80s. Maybe
shoes are absolutely possessed by the devil.
Oh, man.
They are.
I think Nike isn't happy about this.
No, they're not. They're suing.
Yeah. Did he just make the shoes? What happened?
They're like refurbished Nikes, I think, aren't they?
Something.
They're ugly.
Yeah, they're all ugly as hell.
I wouldn't want to wear those guys. But I'm not a shoe guy. So
I'm not a shoe guy either.
Yeah, those people were weird shoe collector people.
Yeah, imagine spending that much money on a shoe.
Before we go, Gordy did have a question for you, Will. He wanted to know what the poster on the back of the wall.
Way back there.
It looks like a what do you say? Hold on, let me find. He said it looks like a lobby card.
It's an old lobby card. It's for a movie called Girl on the Run, and I think I got the framed poster like an estate sale or something.
Oh.
I've never seen the movie, but it's an old like cheap film noir kind of thing.
Oh, okay.
That's it.
Cool. It's always cool. Those are always cool.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. It's been hanging there forever.
Nice. And you do a couple of different podcasts. Will, if you want to plug,
yeah, we do. Although we haven't done this one in a long time, it's been a little tough with COVID and kid issues and that. But I do. Well, I do with our friends Ben Teed and Zach Cruzy. We do Pictures Within Pictures. I know we're recording an episode next week, so that'll be fun. So we'll have 2 coming out fairly soon. And then out of theaters, I do with my friend Billy Culpa. We haven't done one in a while, but we're gearing up to do some more. So that one's movies, Pictures Within Pictures, comics. So
is it just Zach talking about Ditko the entire time?
We should do. Zach, that Ditko book it's the shit now. It's hot. I designed the cover. I should alert that.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Did you? Nice.
Yeah, well, it's based on an old Steve Ditko, but when I manipulated it and reworked it, and the reprinted, because it's going into a second printing, that is going to have a really good back cover that like mimics an old comic book back cover and everything, and a sexy picture of Zach to go with it. So,
well, I was supposed to do his author picture, but we could never. He was in Michigan and I was in Wisconsin, and there's a big lake between us. So
there is a big lake.
Shit, so you're telling me I'm actually gonna have to read this goddamn book now?
It's pretty good. It's an academic book, but it's people are loving it though.
That's good.
It's all about that. It starts off. The first thing is about when he met Steve, when he went to his office and knocked on the door and met Crank
Creeper. What a creep! I'm so glad he did that though.
Oh yeah, completely.
Turned him into an assassin wearing a Rorschach mask, and
that did it.
Yeah, we had Zach on to talk a little bit about the Rorschach series, because it's leaning really hard into the Ditko mythos.
Did you ever see? You remember the Masters of Comic Book Art videotape from the 80s that Harlan Ellison hosted? Did you ever see this? It had interviews with like Frank Miller and Will Eisner and Kirby and
I've seen.
And Steve Ditko is in it, but he doesn't. He reads a prepared statement. He's not on camera. He doesn't give an interview. And my roommate, when he had it, he would always do this announcement saying, "And now Steve Ditko will read his terrorist statement." And then he doesn't mention comics, of course, at all. It's all, it's like a Mr. A monologue is what it is.
Oh.
But it is his voice, so you get that.
There you go.
That's
Steve.
Cool. All right. So yeah, that's all of our business. Check out Will's podcast. Still running the X-Ray Specs.
Still am. I actually posted some stuff this year so far about the books I read and the movies I watched last year. So
I believe I read that.
I'm gonna keep that going.
All right.
And I can't say anything else, but I am working on a comic book now. It will be out this year, but I legally cannot say anything else about it.
Well, that's good. That sounds like it's a good thing then.
So, yeah, but that makes it real. The fact that I could be sued if I open my big fat mouth.
You and Hillary Barta are working on Zack Snyder's SpongeBob SquarePants. That's right.
6 hours long. And
it's dark. So dark. It's SpongeBob for adults.
That's right. Yes, it was meant to be.
SpongeBob's already for
this
adults.
time. Squidward
kind of
gets his.
Already.
All right. Yeah. So that's all I got. Are we good, Sal?
I think so. Yeah, man. I think that's. Thanks again, Will. Really.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Yeah. Well, whenever we found out that Tom wasn't going to be here this week, you were the first person that was mentioned, and we didn't mention anyone else after that. So
I'm honored.
No one turned us down before we came to you.
Oh, thanks, guys.
Absolutely. All right. Well, once again, big thanks to Mr. Will Pfeifer. And I'm sure we'll have him back on. Maybe we'll do a 30 minutes with Chris one of these days, and catch up once you have some comic book news to release. Maybe that would work. Sal and I will be back on Thursday with some ACD&D and then all the extra Patreon stuff.
Look for Around Comics Crime Cast coming from me and Will.
That's right.
Exclusively on Patreon. We're gonna do
Catch a Murderer.
Serial killer cast.
Yeah,
there's got to be some sort of like comic book connection we could do there or something like something.
Who was in the 40s or one of the crime comics guys did like kill somebody. There's like some
see,
murders in comics.
That could be the
mean,
first episode. We'd research that. There we go. We'll have to talk about this.
It's Jack Kirby who was killing Vince Coletta's hookers. All right. For that and more, tune in next week. In the meantime,
in between time,
we'll be everywhere in
and
around comics.
Everywhere.